Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Rumcast. I'm Will Hookinga, as always, here with John Gulla down in Miami, wearing the nice University of Miami with the U logo hat, representing on the podcast today.
Yes, thank you for making that distinction, by the way. Miami University is in Ohio.
Ohio, yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm
aware. But anyway, today we've got a really fun interview that we did with Maggie Campbell and Jackie Broomes, who work at Mount Gay. Jackie is the agricultural manager. Maggie Campbell is the pretty new estate rum manager. This is her new gig. Maggie is a guest we've had on the program in the past, and it was good to have her back and kind of catch up. I know lots of people, including us, are very curious as to what she's been getting up to at Mount Gay. So before we get into that, though, John, I know we've got some reader mail we want to check in on. Before we get into that, though, what reader mail? People aren't reading the podcast; they're listening. We've got listener mail to get into. But before we get into that, how are things going for you?
Great, actually. I'm here actually sipping on some Mount Gay Andean Oak, which I was very lucky enough to grab recently and have been enjoying over the last few weeks. So I
believe you were sipping on that during our interview as well.
I was, and I brought it out again because I love to get different impressions over, or I should say, impressions of a rum over different nights or over time.
Right.
Because I think that really adds to the experience and you get a little bit out of it that way. I mentioned it, I think, on the interview for them as well, but I really, really enjoy this one, and I love the presentation. I love
you're big on the box.
I do like the box, actually. Yes, it's a beautiful dark green, and it is a beautiful bottle within it. But what I like about it is they put like some information on there, and it says like style on the front of it. The style they have is opulent and spicy. Opulent. And you know what? I have to agree.
Wow.
I think it is exactly opulent and spicy is what comes to mind. It's a really fantastic rum. Anybody who gets a chance to either try it or buy it, you won't be sorry. It's a really, really nice one.
Opulent. That's a $5 word if I've ever heard one. Is it $5 word or $10 word?
I've heard, 50-cent word. I don't know. Maybe there's just different levels of word money.
Well, whichever price amount it is, it's an expensive sounding word. That's what I'm going for. Anyway, before we go over to Mount Gay, we got an email in from a listener named Tyson who had a question that I think is on a lot of people's minds if they've never been to a rum event. So basically, he said, I've never been to a rum tasting or a rum festival. He wanted to know, what are they like? Is it a fun time? Are they educational? What are the prices like? And I think this is a great topic because I think overall rum festivals can be a really cool experience and a way to really like advance your... I don't want to make it sound too fancy. It's a great way to taste a bunch of rums you've never had all at one time, instead of having to like slowly buy a bunch of bottles or like exchange samples and stuff, which can all be fun, but it's a good way to supplement that and be able to taste a lot of things all in one place, all at one time with people who are as crazy about rum or in some cases even more crazy about rum maybe than you are. So I wanted to turn the question on you though, because actually all my experiences at festivals to date or events have I've usually been doing a panel or something like that on them. And so I enjoy them, but my personality type is like, if I have to do something like that, I basically can't enjoy myself at all until that thing is over. It's not like I'm pacing around like a nervous wreck or anything like that, but I'm just, it's on my mind and I can't just, kind of kick back and relax until I've gotten that out of the way. So I wanted to turn the question to you. I know you've been to you get a steady stream, it feels like, of great events, festivals related to rum down there in Miami. What's your impression of them? What do you think the value is for an average rum enthusiast?
Well, first of all, yes, I have been a regular paying customer for many a rum festival down here.
Yes.
And experienced them in that way. First thing I would say is even amongst those here in Miami, they're all kind of different in certain ways. Yes, the central premise stays the same. You're going to have a bunch of different rums that are present, different rum brands present, and they'll all be trying to offer you different drinks or just straight up the rums to try. And so it's a really fun experience in that way to do that. But they all have their own niches as well, at least of those that I've gone to. So I've learned over the last few that I've attended that you have to pace yourself. yourself.
Yes.
Pacing yourself is very important. But if you do, and you are there to learn about the rums, learn about who's making them, what they're doing with their processes, and then getting to try them, it's an absolutely invaluable experience. What I've paid for tickets going in has been well worth it every single time so far.
And I would say, like, to me, the seminars and things like that, there will definitely usually be some really good ones. But I would say the things that are most irreplaceable about events are the being able to taste stuff, to go up to booths, to meet people from the brands, and also to meet just the other people in attendance. Because as good as the seminars and things can be, there are a lot of great seminars and stuff that you can see online, videos you can watch that, it's not as good as being there in person. And especially sometimes I will say, if you see the seminars where there's going to be some sort of tasting during the seminar, definitely try to make it to those and check and make sure, because sometimes you have to like put your name on a list in advance because they only have seating capacity for a certain number of people. So look into that. I know I sat in on a Mount Gay presentation at the Rum Renaissance Festival in Miami. I believe that was actually when we met.
Yeah.
And they did a great tasting. We got to try, kind of some of the flagship releases. And it was around the time that release, the Peat Smoke, came out, which is a pretty pricey bottle. I think it was around like $200. And, everyone got a sample of that to try. So I would say, like, keep a lookout for the seminars where there's going to be a tasting involved, because there's not always a tasting during those. But yeah, other than that, just like go to the booths, meet the makers. The distillers themselves aren't always there, but you'll be surprised at like some of the personalities you can meet in person at rum festivals. Do that and, just try to have a good time. I try, like you said, to pace myself. For me, that's essential, especially if it's a multi-day event. You don't want to overdo it on the first day. So pace yourself, have a good time, be responsible. Don't be a wild, loud, insane person, like ruining everyone's good vibes. But yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah, I agree totally. And I think there is a lot of education to be had there too. So there's, again, depending on the event, they are different. Sometimes there's educational elements. There's just the having fun, hanging out with rum people element, which is a very fantastic thing. And then there's the tasting element also. And to your point, Will, different tables will have different levels of people working the event. So sometimes you do have the distiller and you can really get that inside information. Sometimes it will be a brand representative, and many of those brand representatives are very knowledgeable about the product and can answer questions as well. Sometimes you just have a booth person who's just a booth person pouring, and you have to look on the bottle yourself. But they're usually really good about just saying, yeah, here, check out the bottle. So it's just about understanding those differences and getting out from it what you're looking for, not only to taste but also to learn about the rum that you're tasting.
Yeah,
and I think that's really the key.
And you can meet some incredible personalities, like you were saying. Like, it doesn't have to be the distiller always. When I was at the New York Rum Festival late last year, like at the Worthy Park table, Zan Kong was there, who's like one of the most knowledgeable, fun rum people to talk to. So, yeah. And just to like list off, I guess, some events to look into. I mentioned, Miami has the Rum Renaissance Festival. There's also the Miami Rum Congress, which should be actually happening right as we release this episode, I believe. Yeah. There's the New York Rum Festival, California Rum Festival, which is usually in San Francisco, and I think there's going to be some in LA this year, maybe one in Washington. So yeah, we'll put some links in the show notes to some different rum festivals that you can look into.
And we've heard some others popping up. So keep your eyes peeled, even if you're not in those locations, for others that seem to also be starting to come. I've heard some in the Carolinas, maybe, up in the north near the Boston area, and others that might be starting to come together as COVID starts to decline and in-person events begin to rise again. So,
and if you have any local rum or tiki bars, like, just follow them, because a lot of times they'll have, brand events coming in regularly. So those aren't like full scale rum events with lots of different producers, but it can still be a great way to go get to know a distillery better and their products. So yeah, so I think we covered that. With all that said, I'm excited to get into the interview. As I said earlier, we talked to Jackie Broomes, agricultural manager at Mount Gay, and Maggie Campbell, who is the estate rum manager at Mount Gay. And this is kind of like a whole other side of Mount Gay. I don't know that people know the extent of the agricultural program there, but they're growing sugarcane because they want to have their own molasses essentially to use for parts of their production. It won't replace the other types of molasses that they use fully, but we get into all that, and there's a ton they're doing beyond sugarcane that I think is just really interesting in all how that works, and like a bunch of stuff I didn't even realize they did. So yeah, I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, I think the sustainability angle is really one that is interesting
for sure,
and really lays out the future. This conversation and what they're doing, I think, paints a good picture of what the future of rum looks like for probably a lot of people and what we need to start thinking about. But it's great to see Mount Gay taking a kind of a leadership role in what they think they need to do with sustainability moving forward also. If you don't care about sustainability, you should.
And I think you will after listening to this, because
exactly.
like we got into that a little bit of just like, sustainability gets tossed around so much. Sometimes people hear it and, just their eyes kind of glaze over. But, why should rum consumers care about this? And you absolutely should. And Maggie and Jackie both give like very good reasons why this is something that all of us should care about and prioritize.
Exactly.
Oh, also real quick, before we get over to the interview, we wanted to plug one more time. This is our 49th episode. So our next episode is our 50th episode. And as we said on the last podcast, we put out the call to the Rumcast community out there.
A call to action.
Yeah, a call to action. Just we'd love to hear from you and just hear like what you love about rum, or maybe something you've heard on the podcast that connected with you, or something you've tried or experienced, a certain rum that you learned about from the podcast. We'd love to hear what that experience was like for you, and we want to hear it in your words, in your voice. So just pull out your phone, record a little audio message, and email it to us at host@rumcast.com. That's HOST@rumcast.com. We've already received some very cool messages, and we're hoping to do something fun with them. So if you're up for that, go ahead and get that in by, we'll say until March 13th. And we'll try to do something fun with that. All right, let's get over to the interview. Hey Rumcasters, Ed Hamilton and Brock Smith wanted to bring US rum lovers something that's pretty rare, which is single cask, single mark, single still, unadulterated rum expressions from Guyana. And with the Hamilton Single Cask series, that's exactly what they're doing. So now, if you want to experience foolproof releases from each of the 4 diamond stills, that means the Saval multi-column, the Versailles wooden pot, the Inmore wooden coffee, and the historic Port Morant double pot, you finally can. Plus, the series also includes releases from Clarendon in Jamaica and Foursquare in Barbados. All 6 expressions are extremely limited, and you can find them in the Florida Rum Society shop. And the good news about that is, that means they can be shipped to many states throughout the U.S. So visit FloridaRumSociety.com/Hamilton to secure some of these limited bottlings today. All right, we are here with first-time Rumcast guest Jackie Broomes and returning Rumcast guest Maggie Campbell, both from Mount Gay Rum. And I noticed in getting ready for this is actually the first time we've ever had that combination of a new and a returning guest. Mm-hmm. And it's the first time that a returning guest has been in a completely different place, completely different country than she was the last time she was on the show. So welcome to both of you, first of all. And Maggie, I did want to start by just asking, like, is everything still just a whirlwind at this point? Do you feel like you're closer to settled in? Do you have your bearings and like in the swing of things down in Barbados? Where are you right now?
Thanks. Yeah, it's great to be back. Thank you guys for having us. I was so excited when you reached out. I've been a little stingy with giving too much of my time and energy because I have been really focused on this move. So I was really excited to get to say yes to you guys. My husband, Peter, who some of you guys know, said over dinner the other night, he's like, we're in phase 2. So now we know where things are. We know how to get stuff. We have like a bank account. And, big thanks to the Rum family. The crew at Mount Gay have been amazing at helping me get settled, as well as obviously the SEALs have been a huge help in introducing me to people. Gail helped me pick out a doctor, stuff like that.
So many little things when you move that you don't realize you have to get. And I hadn't even thought about it, like a new bank.
It's an adventure.
I'm sure. I moved down the street 2 years ago. I think I'm still in phase 2 at this point. So.
We feel like, we're a little more settled. We know our neighbors well. We recognize people we see around town. They recognize us. Gail and I have our Saturday morning coffee visit. And
there you go.
Yeah, it's feeling very much like home. I feel like settled. We're mostly unpacked, like 95%. The other 5% will probably never happen. We'll move the next time to another house. And
everyone has the 5%.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's feeling good. It's feeling good. I feel a lot more settled. Been a lot more in touch with people and kind of coming out of my moving shell. So thanks for asking.
Well, I'd love to kind of start by learning how you both ended up doing what you're doing. So Jackie, you're the agricultural manager at Mount Gay. And it might be kind of a surprise to some of our listeners that Mount Gay even has an agricultural component. It's not like it's never discussed or anything. There's information on it out there, but I feel like it's this corner of what you're doing at the distillery that isn't known as much. So I'd love to hear just how you ended up in that position and what what's involved with being the agricultural manager.
Well, yes, I am the agricultural manager, as weird as that might seem to some people. Mount Gay purchased an estate in the year 2015 so that they could begin the process of growing their own sugarcane. At that time, I was employed as a non-sugar agronomist and at the island's sugarcane research unit. So my role meant that I worked with all crops but sugarcane, so no sugarcane.
So it's a sugarcane focused place, but you were a non-sugar agronomist.
Agronomist. So I was the only non-sugar agronomist. There were 5 of us, and I was the only non-sugar agronomist.
Wow.
So I was literally the only person not working in sugarcane. But in 2018, I heard through the grapevine, that Mount Gay was looking for an agricultural manager. But I somehow felt that they would want someone more sugarcane oriented, of course. But lo and behold, one day I just got this phone call, and it was Mount Gay on the line. And as we say, the rest is history, right? At Mount Gay now, I'm responsible for the successful execution of all agricultural and some environmental initiatives. And so for the last few years, we have been working hard toward turning the estate around, and we are beginning to reap those rewards, and we are very proud.
Awesome.
Yeah, I know you've got I think what'll be surprising to people is hearing how much more than just sugarcane you're managing there. So we'll get into that eventually, but I'm excited to learn more about it.
So Maggie, kind of completing our intro phase here, you started at Mount Gay back in October, I believe, and are the estate rum manager there. So I was hoping you could share a little bit about how that opportunity came about, what you could tell us about the new role, and maybe what fans of previous efforts can expect from you there as part of Mount Gay.
Similar to Jackie, I got a phone call, and lo and behold, Mount Gay was on the end of the line. I got a call from Raphael, who some of your fans will know and be familiar with. And he said that there was something really exciting going on, and that they had trouble kind of finding this he said, a unicorn who would fit. And I guess I was a good fit. And, from the moment we started talking, I just had this tingle feeling about it. And yeah, it's an incredible opportunity I'm really excited about, and I'll be thrilled to share more about it when I can.
You are the unicorn. You're like, I can't remember what's that famous art photo of the unicorn in the kind of the woody area. Oh gosh, I can't pull the name out, but that's what I'm picturing right now. Is you were the unicorn down there in Mount Gay in Barbados.
I didn't know there was a famous painting involving a unicorn, but now I'll have to look this up later.
It's a medieval painting, okay. And I'm totally going to look it up and put it in the show notes for everybody so people can see I'm not crazy. If you see it, you'll know it. Anyways, now that is forever linked to Maggie Campbell.
I'll ruin it for you, though. I'll ruin it for you because one of my good friends who knows I'm kind of obsessed with The Office does the princess unicorn.
Oh, my horn can pierce the sky. Yeah.
They sing that, right?
Excellent.
That's great. That's great.
So let's get back into talking about agriculture, especially with you all. What's the larger vision behind that and the estate rum program at Mount Gay? Is the goal to kind of one day supply everything you need right there at the facility, or do you always kind of expect you'll be in some sort of a relationship with others importing some of the molasses, or what can you talk about with that portion of the program?
Well, just to give you a little background, due to the size of Mount Gay's estate, is really only 320 acres in size. So even in Barbados, that is a smaller estate, right? Just to give you an idea of the size of it. So essentially, we can never really grow enough sugarcane to meet Mount Gay's molasses needs. Not even Barbados can produce the molasses that we need. As such, we will always be reliant on the importation of molasses for the production of our core range. Right? So the molasses from our estate is for a very special project. And trust me, it will be worth the wait. We do have a very big vision for our estate, not only for Mount Gay, but for Barbados at large. We really intend to be a leader in the industry as an example of best practices to use. As an estate where only sustainable agricultural practices are used. We want to contribute to Barbados's food and nutrition security. And we're also actively working to improve our soils, prevent soil erosion. We just have very, very big plans for the estate.
So the idea right now is that kind of what Mount Gay is already doing and has been doing for a very long time, that's not really shifting. This is a new piece that's being added on for a special project that we will hopefully get to see much more of and hear more of in the future.
Exactly. So we're not changing, we're not shifting away from the core range. This is just an exciting new addition, a new baby, if you will. And you have to watch and
grow
see
the
it grow.
family. Yes.
Yes.
It's really interesting just in reading more about being able to use your sugarcane to get your own molasses. Like it sounds like it's not as simple as just like trotting up to the sugar mill and being like, hey, we brought some sugarcane. Can you only process this and give us just our molasses? Like what is that kind of relationship like? Because if I'm remembering correctly, there's one mill active in Barbados right now.
Yeah, we actually only have one working mill. It's called Portville Factory. So what we have an arrangement with them that we send our sugarcane there and they send our molasses to us.
Your description was very sweet and not wholly dissimilar from the process.
Okay. That's good. That's good. I mean, I've heard, I'm sure it's completely different in different parts of the world, but I've talked to some, distillers in Louisiana and things like that try to collaborate with mills down there. And it can be like really difficult to find, the right relationship that works out. So that's cool that you have that. I think another question that will be in people's mind, especially after our latest conversation with Richard Seal and some of what they're doing at Foursquare is like, now that you have more access to fresh sugarcane, are any plans to maybe incorporate stuff besides just molasses and any experiments like juice or anything like that? Is I don't know how much you can talk about that, but could any of that be a possibility?
That's not in our plans right now. For us, the Mount Gay house style, the history of Mount Gay, the way it's always been has been molasses. So we really like to honor that tradition. I think one of Mount Gay's strengths is being the oldest running rum distillery in the world, and making sure that house style is kind of respected, even as it goes through 319 years of change. It still has a core essence. So for us, that molasses is a bit of that. I believe Trudian says it's the heartbeat. Is that correct, Jackie?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think as carried away as sometimes, well, not carried away, but I think sometimes rum enthusiasts want everyone to be doing all of the things all of the time and stuff. But there's something to be said about having an established tradition, and it's not like there's still not room to innovate and do interesting things within that, as we're about to find out all the cool things that y'all are doing with the agriculture and estate program. But I did, on the note of molasses, I think it's really interesting and kind of an ongoing challenge. I feel when I talk to producers about molasses sourcing, is just, it can be difficult. I read in a previous interview that Mount Gay had mentioned hoping to be 100% Pro-Terra certified, using 100% Pro-Terra certified molasses by 2022. So first of all, I was interested in what actually is that certification? Why is that important? Like, why should people care what the molasses is or is not certified for? And kind of like, why is that preferred?
So we made a switch from the Proterra molasses.
Okay.
And we moved to Bon Sucro. But just so that it's clear for everyone, Montgay does have 3 streams of molasses. We have the molasses from our estate that we mentioned before that's going towards the special project. We have, that's a very small in quantity, very small.
Mm-hmm.
We have our local molasses from Barbados, which of course is very desirable. We would hope to have more, but we can't at this time. And then we have the imported molasses, which is sourced from the Caribbean region.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as I said before, ideally, if we could, we would source all of the molasses from Barbados, but the local industry just is not able to support this. We don't have enough sugarcane. So if we don't have enough sugarcane, don't have enough estates under sugarcane, we can't have enough molasses. And we do have to share with the other producers on islands. So by that fact alone, we don't have enough. As such, we have to import the molasses to meet our needs. So to do so as sustainably as possible, Montgay made a commitment to only use Bon Sucro certified molasses, right? And as of 2021, this became our reality. So all of the molasses that was imported from 2021 is now Bon Sucro certified, right? The reason why Bon Sucro was chosen is because it promotes sustainable sugarcane production, processing, and trade all around the world. It is the only certification that we could find that solely focused on sugarcane. And so we thought that the Bon Sucro molasses was ideal because it shares a common mission with what we at Montgay seek to do, and that is value the people, the communities, and the ecosystems in all of our cane growing regions, our cane growing estates. So that is where we are right now.
And I'm just trying to like wrap my head around how the whole molasses ecosystem works. I'm curious, is something like Bon Sucro certified, is that a small percentage of all the molasses out there, or is it becoming like an increasingly large percentage? Like, are we making progress on sugarcane and molasses becoming more sustainable, or is it still like a small part of it?
It's increasing every year, especially within the Caribbean and Latin American regions, which really concerns us here in Barbados. So it's something that I expect that you will see more of in the near future.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, but we try to choose those entities that are closest to us because we're also very interested in reducing our carbon footprint. So the closer you are, the better it is for us here in Barbados.
And shifting back to the sugarcane that's now being grown there, I know back in 2020, Raphael Grissoni actually did also mention that there was new varieties of sugarcane that you're growing in greenhouses. So, Jackie, I was wondering if you can share more about that process specifically, and is the goal to narrow down which of those varietals you're going to get? Are you trying to have more of them available to experiment with, or what can you tell us with that?
You're asking me my secret. Well, to be honest, Barbados is blessed. I would say that we're blessed to have one of the world's oldest cane breeding stations located in Barbados. The other one is located in Java on the other side of the world, right?
Yeah.
So because of this, we have access to sugarcane cultivars that were bred in Barbados, specifically for Barbados. So that's a plus for sure.
Yeah.
However, when Montgay purchased the estate in 2015, obviously before it was run by another entity. And when we purchased the estate in 2015, what we followed was that it was covered in primarily one single cultivar. So if it was 150 acres under sugarcane, all 150 was under one cultivar. Now, in the agricultural world, this is not a good practice because in the event that there's a major disease outbreak within that particular cultivar, of course, you will lose all of your plant material, all of your effort. You will have nothing to show, right? So to combat this, what we did was we embarked on a diversification program. We wanted to gather as many cultivars as we could and establish our own nursery. And so we did that. So now Montgay is privileged to have the largest sugarcane nursery outside of the government-run research unit that I mentioned before, if you remember. Remember where you used to work?
Yeah.
So we now have the largest sugarcane nursery outside of them. The greenhouses that you mentioned, they enable us to propagate the sugarcane from single eye cuttings. Usually would use the entire cane, or you would use something that we call a billet, about 10 inches inside. But by using the greenhouses, we're actually able to use one single eye of the sugarcane. And this helps us to expand our program a lot faster. So that is where we are in terms of the nursery, the cultivars, the greenhouses, and essentially they serve to help us decipher which canes will be best suited for our plans in the future, for our special project.
I think that's awesome. I hope my wife is also listening, because I have about 8 different varieties of tomato in our garden back. And she always asks me, like, why do you have so many different types? I'm like, it's part of the practice. This is how we learn, and diversity of all of that. And it's mixed in with all the other stuff. So at a much smaller scale, of course. And far less scientific also.
But you must have the science to back you up.
I try, I give it an effort.
And I don't want to get into asking you to reveal any secrets, but I'm curious if there are certain qualities that you sort of prioritize over others in the sugarcane you're looking for. Like, is most of it due to how it's going to grow and that kind of thing, and when you're going to be able to harvest it? I don't even know if that's a factor, but I don't know if you can speak to that at all.
Well, in the conventional sugarcane world, we tend to focus heavily on yields. Mm-hmm. So Mount Gay is located in an intermediate rainfall area. So in the past, we would have selected the canes primarily to grow in this intermediate rainfall area, those canes that perform best with, a moderate amount of rainfall. But the more we get into rum and molasses, this might change with Maggie on board. You never know what you might see in the future in terms of the selection of these sugar canes.
Yeah, for us, it's an exciting project to be growing sugarcane to make super high quality molasses, which is not what the last few decades have been necessarily about. So it's different.
That's
why we're so mysterious. We're mysterious ladies.
No, it's interesting though, because I remember, Maggie, you had Wayne Curtis did that article about kind of your search at your previous position for the ideal molasses, and you were so far away back then from being able to get it, and now you're like right at the source growing sugarcane for the purpose of having molasses. Like, what is it like going from that to this? Like, it must feel a little shocking, I would think.
It feels like I took all these very strange career steps that didn't always make sense at the same time, and now it's like, oh, that was the reason, so I could be here now. So
got it.
Yes, it feels incredible to be like getting to work with Jackie is like amazing. Like, so many things I've read in a book or studied at school or in distillation 100 times. Like, it's not the same as being at the research station, shaking the canes so they are cross-pollinating, like, and creating different things. Like, it's a completely different experience and totally changed me as a distiller already.
I make you go into the cane grows with me now, so
I love
as close to the source as you can get.
There you go. Wait, you mentioned something that stood out to me. You said shaking the canes. Can you tell me about that? I'm not familiar with this process.
Jackie, if you want to talk about it, one of the first things we kind of did earlier in working together, it's been awesome to get to work with Jackie. She took me to the cane breeding station, and they gave me sort of an in-depth tour of all these things. And of course, I'm thinking about all of the grape breeding stations I've been to from my wine background, and it was really cool to see those different aspects. But there's this really beautiful process where they introduce the canes as to create different crossings. If you want to talk about that more, Jackie, you know much more about it than I do.
Well, essentially, it's part of their breeding program. So it's not something we do on a normal basis on the estate, because we're just propagating the canes. We're just multiplying. But as a part of their breeding program, they have to use the little bit of fuzz on the arrows of the cane and somehow combine that to make new canes. So it's a very intensive process, and I wanted Maggie to see it firsthand so that she could have an appreciation of the intense work that goes behind the production of new sugarcane cultivars.
Yeah.
So we took her there to experience it. Yeah.
Yeah. Just helping me learn overall everything about cane, because what we do ourselves is specific, but it was really good to get a reference for what's going on across the entire industry and see it up close and get to touch and feel it and all those things.
That's so interesting. Yeah, you always hear about new cane varieties or crossbreeding, but I've never stopped to think about how does how does that, like, how do you make that happen if you want it to? So
It's the very minute fuzz on sugarcane that you have to use. So most people wouldn't know that.
it's all in the fuzz.
Yeah, all in the fun.
So we've mentioned the word sustainability a few times so far in this conversation, and I think that word gets thrown around so much these days, and not just in rum and spirits, but like all over the place, that you almost start to sort of lose the meaning. It can get lost a little bit. And one thing I wanted to ask you both is, why do you think the average rum drinker should care about sustainable rum production? Like, how is it relevant to rum and the future of rum, and what does sustainability as a whole mean to you at Mount Gay?
In my opinion, both producers and consumers have a responsibility to ensure that the rum that they consume is produced as sustainably as possible. Rum has a very checkered past, to say the least. It's something that we are all aware of, but we should not ignore. And so I believe that a commitment to sustainability means that we are committed to the use of fair and ethical practices in our labor, in our sourcing of materials, in our processes, in how we treat the environment. So the average rum drinker should care, because it means that we're showing concern for our people and our processes. And, just ensuring that it's around for a very long time, but as fair and ethically as possible. Personally, at Mount Gay, we're located on a very small island, the island of Barbados, only 166 square miles in size. Very small, a dot if you think about it. So small islands such as ours are very sensitive to world development, climate change. In recent times, it's very real to us. Very real to us. It presents itself in the rising sea levels, any changes to our climatic conditions. Within the last 2 years, we've been having very strange weather, if you will. Rain when it's not supposed to be rain, and then when it does come, it's like extreme events, heavy downpour. So sustainability speaks to all of that. Just ensuring that there's longevity of Mount Gay and Barbados as a whole.
There's a big emphasis throughout the entire company on, ocean conservation and being aware that that's as much of our ecosystem as the land, sometimes it feels like. And like Jackie said, it's been interesting for me moving here that it's not a consumerist culture in the way that I'm used to. It is a very thoughtful, low waste culture. It surprised me when I moved here that it's very normal for every home to have a solar panel water heater. It's very, very natural and normal to mend and repair and fix. And a lot of people have those skills. Whereas, growing up for me, you threw it away and bought something new. I wouldn't even know how to fix it.
Yeah.
So there's definitely that culture. And then, of course, Mount Gay's dedication, I'm kind of have written and spoken on this in the past, and like where the really meaningful sustainability can come from. It's not just the public outward facing stuff, but sort of the more interior stuff. So our liquid natural gas boiler is fantastic. Jackie and I had some hammering outside our offices the last few weeks with a solar panel project that's happening. And there's a lot of really meaningful and exciting stuff in the works, because I will say that it's not just Mount Gay, it's also Remy Cointreau is really dedicated to this theme of sustainability through every step of the process in everything we do. And it's really nice to see that attention and stewardship, which is so important for, an island culture.
Yeah.
No, it's interesting, talking about different things around the distillery and I'm sure you talked to him about this as well, when I've talked to Roberto Serrayes in the past about sustainability. And it's just like every piece of the process at a distillery, there's like some challenge to making it more energy efficient, or there's always like something to solve. And there's so many pieces of it that consumers aren't aware of and like will never see. And but yeah, it's like so much work goes into that stuff.
Yeah. And for us, looking really closely, especially on the farm, about what can we do closed system wise? How can we not import this and not import that? How can we take water from the distillery and reapply it to the fields? How to get nutrients in that process too. And I think that's something we're really aware of, is how do we close our own system to reduce our waste instead of bringing things in and ejecting waste out?
I think a lot of rum drinkers would agree with those sentiments and see it as a worthwhile effort for those reasons and others as well. I also wanted to mention, I'm sure there's also some thoughts when people sometimes hear sustainability or organic and they think, oh, yes, and now what's the economy of that? And are there going to be price differences affected by all of that? So I wanted to ask you all, is that part of the conversation when you think this through? Have you all thought about how that piece and product price plays into sustainability practices, or is it the focus is, look, we have a higher responsibility here for many reasons, and whatever happens with the end product is what it is, and we will think people will understand that?
Yeah, we're really fortunate that Remy Cointreau is majority family owned, and Mount Gay has been around for 319 years. So long-term thinking is a big part of this company. So I think that with a lot of short-term economics, you run into, we're making this investment, so we have to have all these economic issues. Whereas for us, the long-term benefit, because you often see at wineries and other businesses where they invest in organics, et cetera, you actually reduce your inputs, you actually reduce some of your costs. So for us, it's sort of the long-term game as opposed to the short-term seeing sort of this pop and then fade. It's sort of this long-term game. The community cost, if you're pulling resources and things out of your community to do that, like that's a huge expense. And so for us, the overall humanitarian expense of not going towards sustainability, especially being close to the equator, a smaller island, a place that's often more heavily impacted by those actions than other places. To us, it's just too important and something we plan to manage with a long-term vision.
So you mentioned talking a little bit about the hammering and the solar project there. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, the procedures and processes or other innovations that you're working on, specifically maybe with the usage of energy to run the distillery? Are they renewable, or what are some of the other pieces there that are in action?
Well, we're very excited to share that we are moving away from the dependence on fossil fuels, such as diesel and kerosene, to cleaner fuel and to renewable energy where possible. So in 2021, we commissioned our LNG plant, liquefied natural gas plant, and this has gone a long way so far in helping us to reduce our carbon footprint. So that is replacing some of the diesel and the kerosene in the process. Actually, we have completely replaced diesel, so no more diesel in the process, which is a very heavy fuel and contributes to heavy carbon emissions. So that has been removed from the process. Barbados is blessed to have year-round sunshine. I know most people are very jealous of that fact, but yes, we do have year-round sunshine. And so we decided to harness that energy from the sun for the production of solar power. This is not foreign to Barbados. We have been using solar power, especially for heating water for many, many years. From a child, I can remember so many ads on the radio and the TV talking about get your own solar water heater so that you can bathe in hot water, So we have been doing that at a much larger scale. We have solar power both at our Brandon's and St. Lucie plants, and we plan to increase this in the very near future.
Awesome.
I know one of the things that has always been cool to me when talking to anyone associated with distilleries is hearing like sometimes the ideas that get exchanged between distilleries. And I'm interested in, because so everyone is facing a lot of the same challenges
issues
with sustainability. So do you see a lot of collaboration or a lot of exchange of ideas? Because I know there's always some edge of competition between distilleries, but this seems like one area of the business where it's like, I don't know, like maybe there's a little bit more openness in terms of like sharing what's working for you and trying to make the whole industry more sustainable.
Yeah, I think that, I think especially here, you've seen some of the distilleries come together over common causes and start to share and exchange information. So, we definitely, when we're looking at different equipment or something like that, we'll call our peers who have the same equipment and say, what do you think? How's it gone? Can we come visit? Can we come see? We're headed out on a little adventure shortly to see some of our peers. I don't want to blow up their scene, but there might be some photos online soon. So some of us are going to go visit some of our peers at another island. And I think cool. that I think that when you have common goals and you're kind of similar in your ethos and your approach, it's just really natural that you'd have that support. I think particularly as an outsider coming to the Caribbean, something I see is very important is your relationships. And, there can be a big storm, there can be a tough year, there can be a hardship, and your family and your friends and your relationships really show up to help you get through. Because when you get sort of knocked sideways in a country that is sort of underrepresented or disadvantaged in certain ways globally, like, you need those support systems. So I think there's a very natural, like, if someone reaches out and asks, you help. Would you say that's accurate, Jackie? Or
I agree. I agree. Yeah.
So, Maggie, I think you pretty much answered earlier how much you can share about what your projects are that you're working on. But I know listeners would be beating down our doors if we didn't ask when we might see something from the Estate Rum program. And if the answer is you can't say anything else, that's fine. But I have to do it, or otherwise, John and I will be at our personal safety may be at risk.
Yeah. If my Facebook inbox and Instagram DMs tell me anything, so this is a common question. And I'll be super, super excited to share with everyone when I can. And it'll be a good time.
All right, then. Keep your secrets.
Thank you. Thank you all for your patience. Spirits is a very long-term game.
Yes.
And you always hear us say, like, when something's new, it takes a long time. So buckle up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, stuff like this makes things fun. It makes the build up and the anticipation make the reveal all that much more special, I feel like. Yeah. So there's a lot of good stuff happening in the rum world, and even cool new stuff from Mount Gay. Anyway, I know John is sipping on some of the Andean oak cask right now, which he's been in my ear about. Yeah. So
I've been making Will so jealous.
Already out there. Yeah, yes. Yeah. I haven't gotten a bottle myself, so maybe he'll share someday.
He's one of the lucky few because that's sold out.
Yeah,
it's sold out very, very.
I was very lucky.
Quickly.
Yeah. Yes, I was very lucky to get one. Yes, so I'm happy to have it. And can I just mention, I know Will is going to roll his eyes at me, but oh my gosh, I love the packaging for this one too.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Oh, it's so nice.
They did a really good job. Yeah.
Oh, they did such a good job. So fantastic. Liquid inside the bottle and everything outside of it.
Yeah,
really well.
Thank you. Trudy Ann and the team are doing some really incredible stuff. It's just amazing. And, when she reformulated the releases, the Black Barrel, the XO, I was such a fan. I was so excited. And I think what she's up to is really special.
Yeah. I was lucky enough to sit in on one of the tastings where, we got a sample of the previous blends and the new blends, and just being able to see that and hear the process behind it and everything was so fascinating. So we definitely need to have Trudy Ann on the podcast at some point. So hear about the other side of Mount Gay.
Yeah. I really encourage people to pour Black Barrel and XO against similar peers and just give it a go. Cause I think people think, oh, I've had Mount Gay. I've had it in the past. I know it, and it's exciting to revisit. I see John nodding enthusiastically. Exactly.
Yep. Well, John and I just recorded an episode of just the two of us a few days ago where we were building our ideal rum flights for different scenarios. And one of his flights included Mount Gay XO. And he was basically hitting all those points you just made. So you're preaching to the choir right now.
We're mentally synced, Maggie. We're on the same page here. Unicorns in a forest together.
I love it. In a unicorn habitat.
Yeah. So I want to go back to a little bit of what we were hinting at earlier, which was when people hear Mount Gay has an agricultural program, their minds go straight to sugarcane. But I know that's not the only thing you're managing. I've read about fruit trees. I've read about mahogany trees, beehives. I think Maggie, maybe you posted some pictures of the beehives and stuff, and I knew you had done beekeeping stuff in the past, and so I was like, did she bring this to Mount Gay, or was this already happening?
It was a perk on my resume. Was she's not scared of bees?
Yeah,
we can handle this.
the beekeeping section of the resume really came in handy.
Check that box.
So I'd love to hear just what's the motivation to go beyond sugarcane. What role does all of that diversification of what you're growing kind of play in the whole program?
Well, yes, we are surprisingly much more than sugarcane and molasses. We do have a strong biodiversity program that we're actively working on right now. As you know, sugarcane is a monocrop, has been present in Barbados since the 1600s. And while it does have its benefits to the soil, as any monocrop does, it can also remove essential nutrients from the soil. And it also reduces your plant diversity, you know? So in order to combat this, what we have done is we implemented an active crop rotation program. So that's one aspect of the biodiversity. So this helps us to fight the fertility and pest issues without the use of inorganic compounds. So what we really do is we plant a lot of root crops, a lot of tuber crops, a lot of legumes and other short crops. And these help us to break up the pest cycles in the soil as well as protecting our soil. And another plus is that it contributes to local food security. You know, we grow food alongside our sugarcane. And I must say that our staff and the neighboring village, they love our market days because we're able to supply them with fresh, nutritious produce at, you know, a reduced price. So that's one plus to that part of the biodiversity program. The other part is the planting of trees. As you mentioned, we have a number of orchards. We have about 3 different orchards. These orchards have been put in places where the land is not suitable for sugarcane. Sugarcane prefers nice flat lands or just gently undulating lands. But in the areas where it's too steep or too dangerous, we just don't plant sugarcane or we plant trees. We also have a mahogany grove that you mentioned adjacent to these fields. In the past, mahogany used to be found all over the Barbadian landscape. And this was before the monocropping, before the housing. And so we're just doing a very small part to bring some of this back because the trees were also carbon sinks. And we have a relatively high carbon footprint because we're a small island. So we rely on imports and exports. So this is just another way of us trying to reduce our overall carbon footprint. You mentioned the bees.
Yes.
Well, the trees and the bees, the trees and the bees go hand in hand. The bees are critical to pollination, as you know, and the overall food supply. Their populations have been on decline, not just in Barbados, but all over the world due to unsustainable practices. And so Montgay has made a commitment to increase its beehives annually. We actually trained 10 members of staff. Maggie is here with us now, so that will be 11.
Nice.
And they all assist with the venture of increasing the number of beehives annually. We even went as far as to create bee-friendly patches at both the distillery and the estate. So we planted all the plants and the shrubs that we know that they like, ensure that they have a supply of water, so give them a little bee heaven or oasis, if you will. But we really do love our bees. So, you know, these are some of the biodiversity activities that we have been doing for both flora and fauna.
I was going to say, like, if I were a bee, Mount Gay sounds like a pretty awesome, like little
bee
community.
Eden.
Yeah.
It's
you know, I mean, food is...
Beeden?
Beeden, yeah.
Like,
Beeden.
I mean, food is scarce. We even give them some of our own sugar. So, you know, they're very special bees. They feed on the sugar from our own canes. Yeah, they're very special.
They're very pampered. They're very pampered.
Yeah.
They live a life of luxury. Yeah.
We grow like lemongrass to put in their hives to help them stay healthy. And
That's amazing.
They get little bee massages once a week.
Yeah. Life of
little
luxury.
mud masks. It's fine.
Yeah.
So going back to the food that you're growing, am I understanding correctly that you essentially have like almost like a Mount Gay farmers market where people can come and just purchase food there?
During the growing season, when we have sufficient rainfall, because we're primarily rainfall fed.
Okay.
So we rely on the rainfall to feed these crops. We do have a weekly farmers market that we extend to our staff and mainly the neighboring villages, the people of the neighboring villages. But people come from far and wide to get our produce because it's just that good.
It's so good. It's we were here 1 week and I was like, no, we're never leaving. It's so good.
Maggie can tell you about her first watermelon. She's like, it's so red. And
it was incredible. Like you got into it and it smelled as fragrant as like a wild rose. It was unbelievable.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
The okra. I'll never get over those okra. Best okra.
There's
of my
okra.
Life.
That's a magic word for me. I absolutely love okra. That's one of my favorite foods. So, Jackie, are there any crops in particular that you just really enjoy working with? Like, do you have any favorites, or is it like kind of choosing? Is it like choosing a favorite child?
I was going to say, I probably should say sugarcane, but remember I mentioned that I work as a non-sugar agronomist.
Yeah.
So my favorite crop is actually the sweet potato.
Oh, the sweet potato.
And that's because I really believe that it's a crop that can address food and nutrition insecurity. So, it's a staple crop. It's a carbohydrate source. It is also a very vital supply of vitamins and minerals. It grows well in Barbados. It grows well under harsh conditions, So I really think that it's a crop that can help us address food and nutrition security. So I would have to say sweet potato. Don't shoot me anybody for saying that.
And the flower is really beautiful too.
Yeah.
It's really, really pretty. And the Mount Gay sweet potatoes they're epic. It's pretty sweet. So.
Wow. Yeah, I thought I was just missing out on the rum that I haven't had yet from Mount Gay, but it turns out that there's all kinds of stuff there.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Sweet potatoes are very versatile. A lot of things you can do with them. Yeah.
I love sweet potatoes and yams, and those are not the same thing, right?
Right.
We can make sure, because I've talked to people about this.
We get the real yams here. I think you gave me some, Jackie, didn't you?
Yeah. I could actually give you the scientific name.
Sure.
Sweet potatoes are Ipomea batatas.
Oh.
Those are the genuine sweet potatoes. Yams, as we know them, are Dioscorea alata. So you tend to refer to yams, but they're actually Ipomea batatas.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as I was thinking about talking to you all for this interview, one of the things that I thought of was you're coming to this distillery, as I think Maggie said, 319 years old distillery. Mm-hmm. It's so much history, such a distinctive style that you've already spoken about, and you're tasked with something completely new. And so how has that come together for you? And what's that been like? So you've got all of this, but you're doing something that's kind of fully new. How have you approached that?
Yeah, well, I think that it's really interesting because we have some employees, Blues, who passed away recently, was here for 45 years. And we have some employees now who've been here easily 25 years. And it's great to have that history here because people will share with you that, it seems like, it's always been this one way and now something's new, but there was always innovation happening. I remember when we changed this. I remember when we started making this product. I remember the era where we stopped making this product, or we tried this, or we tried that. I think there's always been really, really fascinating innovation going on, but always with that core classic house style to steer us in a direction that's classic and stays away from gimmick and leans more towards sort of the true innovation and the subtlety and the elegance and the leveling up. And I think that's been a part of Mount Gay for a long time. The commissioning of the coffee still just a few years before I came is something totally new and totally exciting, and a different mark and a different expression and a different tool to play with. And so I feel like there's always something new going on at Mount Gay, but also it does have this legacy that that you are one small, your hands help shape one small generation, if you're lucky, of this era. So it's sort of like people are used to new things happening, and also you feel this sense of, I want to get it right for Mount Gay, and you want it to be in the vein of and in the house style of and recognizable as that. And I think that takes a certain amount of, wanting to be part of something bigger than yourself, which, most of my experience was at much smaller experiences. And so it's been kind of cool to kind of step that back and be like, to build what we build is really, I've always worked with great teams, but to build what we build it's a big team. And it's a lot of, we all kind of understand this essence of what Mount Gay is, even as we're trying new things. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
To the
Jackie, the same for you?
Well, for me, I came from an industry that was heavily reliant on the use of conventional practices, the use of herbicides and pesticides and inorganic fertilizers. That was just the norm. But when you come to Mount Gay and you have to use sustainable practices, you have to know better, do better, be better, and you have to think outside of the box. So it was quite a culture change for me, moving away from the conventional industry practices into the more sustainable Mount Gay side. But I would love to say that I think that I'm better for it.
Yeah, I think Maggie, what you were saying about kind of like new things being constantly tried all the time. I remember one of my favorite interviews that we've done on the podcast was when we talked to Frank Ward, and he told us about his time, like his era of Mount Gay and all the different things that he tried and like how the industry was changing and everything. And yeah, there's so much. I think a lot of times we act as if like all the interesting stuff in rum only started happening within the last like 5 years. But like there's so much in the past, 20, 30 years that we just aren't aware of that went into it. And it's always really cool getting to learn about that. And I'm sure you've both heard so many stories from that time period. So that's really cool.
Just 2 weeks ago, someone was visiting Kirsten from E&A Shear.
Oh, yeah.
We don't sell them any rum, but we're great friends of the industry. Come on by, like you were saying, let's connect, let's chat.
Yeah.
And of course, they used to buy rum from Mount Gay. And so we were walking around and he would say, oh, I remember this was where Frank Ward would grow his little like plants and have different seedlings. And I'm like, that's where we grow seedlings. And we give the seedlings to our staff with vinasse so they can take it home and grow their own seedlings. And just hearing these different stories as people walk through the distillery and say, oh, I remember this. And this building used to be that. And it's very cool.
Wait, so staff can get seedlings and vinasse to go to use as fertilizer?
Vinasse to go.
Yes, of course. We have a very robust initiative. We call it the Green Employee Initiative. So every year we give them seeds or seedlings, and we just try to encourage them to grow their own food while using healthier practices, So it's an actual annual initiative that we have for our staff.
That's so cool. What
Talk about living that, right? Yeah, living that ideal.
And for the entire staff, like for everyone to have their hands on it. It's not just something we say, it's a thing we all do. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to like, this is probably a ridiculous question, but what kind of container do you get vinasse to go in? Is it just like what does it look like?
So we're not allowed to use plastic.
Right.
So it's the bottles made of biodegradable material, or we ask them to bring their own bottles.
Oh, okay. So reusing.
Yeah.
That's great. So it's all connected. Yeah. Wow, this has been so cool, and I feel like I kind of want to go to Mount Gay just to see, like, I feel like I'm going to get there one day and I'll be like, yeah, the distillery can wait. I want to see, like, show me the bees. Like, I want to see the sweet potatoes. I want to see the mahogany trees.
It should be part of the tour, for sure.
You'll even take you for a hike through the same mahogany trees. You never know what you may be able to experience on that day.
Yeah.
You will see some monkeys. It will be adorable.
Oh, are there monkeys in the mahogany trees?
Yes, we have about 2 troops of monkeys, probably 500 monkeys in each troop. And if you're early enough on a morning, you might see them come out to fight. They're a feature on our landscape.
What kind of monkeys are they?
They're green monkeys. So
green
smaller
monkeys.
but we have many. We have many.
Yeah.
We have a little monkey garden. Kevin, who works with Jackie, has a little sacrificial, here you go, monkeys plantings to keep them happy and out of our stuff. You can have this.
Yeah.
Yes, he actually says every time he plants, he says, these rows are for you and these rows are for me. And supposedly it works, but I am not too convinced,
The Mount Gay Mahogany Monkey Garden.
Yeah.
There you go.
It's an understanding with the monkeys.
Yeah.
Thank you both again for taking the time to do this.
Yes.
Like I was saying, it's so cool to kind of get to see this side of Mount Gay and this new initiatives and what the future looks like. And it definitely sounds like we have a lot to look forward to that I'm sure people will be eagerly awaiting more news of. So before we wrap up, anything else either of you would like to share, or anything else people should keep an eye out for, or just anything?
I would say Trivian's Master Blender series just gets cooler and cooler, and they keep selling out faster and faster. That was I got a lot of messages about, can you get me one? And I'm like, we're literally out. Like, we're the first people to run out, guys. Like, you can find it in a store. I don't have any. And she's got some great stuff, but I don't want to speak for her. So keep your eyes out. She's got really, really cool stuff coming.
Ooh.
Well, for me, I know that we'll be speaking more about the work coming out of the essay in the very near future. So I would encourage people to, just pay attention to our social media platforms and just keep themselves informed as to all the exciting things that will be happening in the near future.
We'll be involved and informed. No problem.
Yeah.
We're there.
Yeah, and on the Mount Gay Instagram, I usually never follow brands' Instagrams, but I used to follow the Mount Gay Instagram because it shows a lot of photos from the farm.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in seeing the crew and what people are up to on the farm, it shows up there.
Awesome. We'll put a link up to the Mount Gay Instagram in the show notes, so everyone can check it out and keep up with all the exciting work that both of you are doing. But yeah, just thanks again for taking the time to share with us. And look forward to seeing what comes next.
Thank you.
All right, so that was our interview with Jackie Broomes and Maggie Campbell of Mount Gay. We hope you enjoyed that discussion as much as we did and learned a lot from it. Found it to be a super interesting one for the future of rum, as we were saying in the intro, and really enjoyed them taking the time to talk about it with us. And as Will kind of said at the outset, explore a whole new side of Mount Gay with us.
And give us a whole lot of, mysterious things to look forward to that can't be discussed yet, but that I know. Cliffhangers, exactly.
Yes.
We got some good cliffhangers, so a lot to watch from the Estate Rum program at Mount Gay.
Yeah, so if you're anything like us, we'll need to keep following along with them and see what secrets they're able to reveal very soon. But until then, Will, of course, we will keep going with our program, and next episode 50, it's the big
goes
one.
on.
It's a big one for us, so if you haven't got your audio message in, get that in. Host at rumcast.com or hit us up on social media with it. We would love to hear from you. So with that said, Will, where are we on social media so they can get to us?
I believe we're at the Rumcast on Instagram, the Rumcast on Facebook, at the Rumcast on Twitter. You can find us on
YouTube.
Yeah, if you don't like listening to podcasts and you like to just sit at your computer and listen to podcasts there, you can do that now because we're on YouTube. Yeah. So you can just go to our YouTube channel and pull it up and listen to the podcast right there. But
does that make us a YouTube cast? I mean, is that a thing, or how does that even work?
I don't know what it is. It's
Tubecast.
It's sure. No, I'm not saying Tubecast. It's a podcast you can listen to on YouTube if that's your thing. But we're just trying to go wherever the people are. We want to make it as easy as possible. So that's what we're doing. But with all that said, I will see you when we record our 50th episode.
Yep. And thank you all so much for listening as always, and we will see you then.
Thanks everyone.